Yo guys, I hope you're all having a really awesome day. My day's going pretty good so far. It's a bit chilly, but it's slowly warming up. The reason as to why I'm down on the beach right now is because I just done a little video tutorial talking about what ND filters are. I don't know when I'm going to put that up. I might put that one up before this video or after this video, who knows. So the plan now is to go over to my friend Lewis's house. He lives in a little town called St Margaret's at Cliff, and he wants to, well, he's asked me if I can go and pick up some chairs for him because I've got a bigger car. The reason why he wants these chairs is because that's what he does. He buys and sells retro furniture. So without further ado, I like saying that lately. Let's crack on, let's go do that and then figure out what else to do today. So I've all finished the other jobs for today. I've thought because I had the camera and all the equipment in the car, I would come out and do a bit more filming. I know you might be getting a bit fed up, but I'm not. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm loving the fact that the weather's pretty good, even though it is cold. And yeah, so I've come to another favourite spot of mine that I featured in a video quite a while ago actually, when I brought the little Blackmagic camera out. This is, I'd say, probably one of the best views in the whole area. I absolutely love it here. I rarely come here in the day actually, because in the summer you have to pay to come here during the day, but you can come here in the evening. But right now, because it's winter, you can come here. And now here you go. I think it's absolutely amazing. I just love it here. So I got the camera. I usually stand around by this bench thing, but I think for a change I may stroll along a little bit more and get some footage from a different angle for once. So let's go for a stroll. So I've settled on the spot. It's overlooking the harbour, port, whatever you want to call it, from the left hand side. It is pretty noisy down there, so I've just got to get the camera out, get the long lens. I'm going to be using the 200 to 500mm lens, and we'll get some proper sneaky shots, so that should be quite good. So give me a second, I'll just get the camera set up. So as you can see, we're at a very picturesque location, right on Dover Cliffs, right on the white cliffs of Dover. So cameras are ready. Just got to get her balanced up roughly right. When you've got a big lens like this on, you always mount from the lens, not the camera, because if you put the base plate onto the camera, it'd be all this weight would be on the front, and you risk seriously damaging the mounting plate on the front of the camera. So let's move our camera bag out of the way so we're not standing on anything. Alright, let's get this camera rolling. Beautiful day today. Top tip, take the lens cap off before you start shooting. We'll attempt to. There you go. Don't lose your lens caps. They are vital. Oh wow. Sometimes it takes a little bit of faffing around to get the right position. Double check your focus all the time. It's good with the DSLRs because you can always zoom in before you take the shot. Focus is key, the fundamental thing. Lots of people mess it up. Always double check, triple check, quadruple check your focus, because the perfect shots always in focus. I'm going to find a nice little scenario, maybe get someone strolling along. There you go, boom. Film for a few seconds, that's what I tend to do. 5 to 10 seconds on each one of these sort of montage shots usually gives you a nice segment to be able to play with, and if you're editing to music, it always gives you enough time to be able to get to that beat or to that key change. That's always nice. The good thing about filming when we're this far away is the focus kind of tends to be roughly the same place, so once you've set it up, you're usually fine for the rest of the shoot. But like I say, always double check, because you don't want to go home and you've messed it all up. Next shot. The other tip to remember is when you're using such a long lens like this, any movement that you do with the camera or from the camera is really accentuated. Because we're filming so far away, like several hundred meters away, if you move the camera a slight bit or you get a little bit of wind shake that from here looks like a couple of millimeters, in the edit you're swaying about like crazy. Absolutely love it up here. I think it's a really beautiful place. Right, so we've filmed a few things at 200mm. Let's crank this puppy right in, get all the way in, use that 500mm range. Should probably put the ND filter on when I'm shooting that way. I'm going to see if I can get away with it. It's very glowy, but the sun is super low and super bright today. Get back down here. So if you're unsure about your frames per second and your aperture, and your ISO especially, so the tip is to have your shutter speed number twice what your frames per second is. So today I'm shooting at 25 frames per second, so I will aim to keep my shutter speed at 1/50th of a second at all times, and that gives a nice filmic sort of smooth look. The image isn't jarry, and that's just what I tend to do. If you're filming at 50 frames per second, I tend to have my shutter speed at 100th of a second, and it does the same thing. And that's kind of a real format thing to do across the whole of the industry, and yeah, it works, so stick to it. Lighting wise, you want to play on your aperture. You want to, if things are too light, then bring your aperture down to a much higher number. Don't start faffing around with your shutter speed, because we don't want to start changing those variables, because the real one to do is your aperture. All that will do is change the light and it will change your depth of field. But when we're working on such a long distance, the depth of field really isn't an issue, because we're not going to be pulling focus really when we're 200 meters away from a subject, because everything is going to be quite in focus. An amateur mistake that people often do when they're on set of an amateur shoot is they play with they faff around with the shutter speed or ISO. You want to have your ISO on as low a number as possible at all times, because that gives you the best quality, that creates the least noise. You want the least noise as possible in your images to make them nice. However, saying that, some cameras such as the 5D Mark II, Mark III, the A7S, the cameras that you're paying a lot of money for, you can start cranking the ISO up and you don't get a lot of noise. But if you're using like an amateur set, if you're using like a 60D or something, then you may find that when you start taking it up above 1,500, then you will start getting noise in the dark areas, and then any higher than that you'll be getting it in the light areas, and it starts looking horrible. It goes further than the film grain noise that you get in old sort of like classic films, and it's just awful and unusable. No one wants noisy images. So my top tip for time lapses, which is what I'm filming right now, looking down there at the road, is it's a very easy mistake to make. It's a mistake I made a lot when I was kind of starting out, and I would focus on things that were moving in the shot. Now, that's not right. It might seem like a basic thing, but what you want to do is you want to make sure you're focusing on the focal point within the shot. So I'm now aiming down there. I'm focusing roughly in the middle of the shot at the small wall. And the reason for this is when you take it into your edit and you speed it up, the things that you focused on are now completely out of focus because you can't see them. So don't focus on the lorries, for example, that are coming down here, because the lorries are moving. So firstly, they're going to be changing in their plane, so you're going to be chasing that focus all the way down to the front of the shot. And secondly, we won't see them later on, they'll be too quick. Oh, there's a nice shot coming on over here. The cars and things are now coming out of the boat. sure that sign just said it was 25 degrees. Now, it definitely ain't 25 degrees right now. It's cold. Just gonna bring this shot right in. You see how wobbly the shot becomes when I just, all I'm doing is pulling that pulling the zoom in. It's because we are zoomed in so far, and we'll let the shot play out for several seconds, so we get a nice bit of movement, and that then allows us to have a gap or find a section within that clip that we want to use. So I can see there's some more action going on down the front here, so sometimes I'll leave the camera rolling and then just kind of click through it later on. The only thing about that is you can't check your focus. So I meet a lot of people like in the job I do, and they're from all over the place, all over England, mainly people around the London area. And something that they never really believe me about is the fact that here where I live, you can see France. Now France is like, it's roughly about 21 miles away, so it'd be quicker for me to drive to France if I could than it is to go to London. And now if I bring this shot around, we may be able to see it with this long lens. So you come up onto the horizon, you can see the ferry going across. I'm not sure, can you see that? Let me get... What about if I bring this down? There you go. Now that over there is France. Pretty cool, right? And I've just grown up seeing that, so it's kind of become, what I say, just used to it really. But it's just, it baffles people. They think that they don't think you'd be able to see another country from here, but you can. It's pretty cool. It's quite nice. So I remember being told once that this is actually the busiest shipping lane in the entire world. It's only a stretch of water that's maybe 20 miles wide, but it just gets so much traffic. It's like, I'll do some shots now and you can just see just how many boats and tankers and things are out there. It's just absolutely crazy. And when you go across on one of these P&O boats or the DFDS boats, you do see just how busy it is, because you get about halfway and there's tankers and things coming both ways, and it's pretty awesome, and it does lend itself to looking quite beautiful at times, so it's good. So I think that's enough filming for today. I'm just packed up the camera, put it all back in the bag. I'm going to end today's little vlog video there. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you have a really nice evening, and I'll see you in the next one. See you guys.